Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is brought to you by Orlando Homes Express, brokered by eXp Realty, proudly serving Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties. Call 407-790-9957 or visit WeSellOrlando.net. Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. It is our 2019 Fiesta Bowl Preview edition. I am Jeff Sharon, and joining me is Eric Lopez. We've got guests galore. We're talking to people in airports. It's crazy, man. So kind of hard to believe that here we are, just a few days away from New Year's Day, Eric Lopez. It's funny, the bowl season, it feels like it's going to take forever, and you're watching these crappy bowl games, and then all of a sudden you look up and the semifinals are in a couple days, and New Year's Day is right around the corner, man.
You know what? You know what's funny about that? The first bowl game I've actually watched was Thursday's game between Temple and Duke, because that was in the iHeart Studios as I'm filling in on the finish line,
right? Shot
Doctor. So I'm on with Jerry for those that watch Thursday and Friday, and Temple and Duke was on, and Temple was on. It was up 27-14. I'm like, all right. Next thing I know, I look over my shoulder. We started the show doing it. Next thing I know, Duke had scored like 42 unanswered points or something to that extent. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? So that was the first time I've watched any of these bowl games this year. I've kind of boycotted bowl games. I've kind of started doing that for the last couple of years because I'm not a fan of the system the way it is. But obviously, finally, we're getting to the main meal here, which is the playoffs on Saturday, and then obviously the UCF LSU game, which, oh, by the way, yes, we are playing LSU, which this has been a very bizarre kind of lead up into the game because we've talked about other teams instead of the actual opponent we're playing. So that's why I'm looking forward to this actual episode to talk about the actual opponent that we're playing.
This whole thing's just been beyond screwy. But anyway, so we've got that. We've got Brian Murphy is actually en route to Phoenix right now. He is flying out there. He's connecting. We actually recorded his interview a little bit earlier. We're recording this on Thursday night, December 27th.
I know. He's in my favorite airport.
Houston
Hobby Airport.
Yeah. Which it's a little bit like saying it's kind of like your favorite public restroom. But anyway.
Hey, real quick, true story. I've been to that airport like 10,000 times. The first time I ever traveled with UCF softball was for the 2008 Conference USA Championship. We won the championship against Houston, and then we literally had to catch a flight right after the game. We actually celebrated on the field and celebrated at that airport that conference championship as we were waiting for a flight. So.
Because you're like, all right, we won. All right, everyone pack up. We got to get out of here.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's kind of how that works.
So we got Murph at the airport, kind of previewing the UCF side. And we also have Stephen Baker from our SB Nation brethren covering LSU and thevalley.shook.com joining us to talk LSU. Got a great preview from him, including some tips for you UCF fans who may be going out there tailgating before the Fiesta Bowl. Some tips for getting on the good side of the folks from Baton Rouge. Coming up there and Louisiana, heading out there as well. So plenty to talk about with that. But first, let's just dive into the brass tacks here. LSU and UCF in the 2019 Sony PlayStation Fiesta Bowl at University of Phoenix Stadium indoors. It's a 1 p.m. Eastern kick, 11 a.m. local time. UCF actually arrived in Phoenix earlier today on Thursday, December 27th. The Knights are a 7.5-point dog. Over-under is 55.5. The line actually opened at 10 in favor of LSU, so they've shaved almost a field goal off of that. LSU comes in 9-3 in this game, 6-6 against the number so far. But again, this game is indoors. I think that certainly favors UCF. LSU is missing 3 key defensive players, including both of their starting corners, who will not play in this game, and one of their key pass rushers as well. There was also an incident earlier this week involving their second leading rusher, who is involved in an apparent shooting, which we'll get to a little bit more in depth with Stephen Baker. But this has kind of been, and I don't want to make light of what it really is in some cases a serious situation, but this has kind of been a Murphy's Law a little bit for LSU coming into this game. The ongoing joke, Elo, was, well, is LSU going to be motivated for this game? I don't think motivation is going to be a problem for LSU. I think distraction might be a problem for them.
I think that's fair. You got guys thinking about the NFL draft. You've got outside, off the field situations there. It's been a bizarre type of deal there, and it really leaves you wondering, what are you going to see from LSU when they get on the field? Because they are not going to be at full strength. Where's their mind at? Is their mind kind of just, let's get through this game? Is their mind hey, let's try some things for next year? Are they going to be fired up to play? I mean, it's just a very odd thing. There's just everything's going on except the game. Now, maybe as we get closer to kickoff, it'll low down. And, Ed Orgeron, say what you will, and everybody will. One thing he does do, in talking to people at LSU, and even here, he was in Orlando last year. People forget this. LSU played Notre Dame here in Orlando a year ago while UCF was in Atlanta. He has a way of getting players the most out of them, motivation-wise. He's a pretty fiery guy, as you've seen on the press conference. And I think the players, the reason he got that job is because players play for him. And so I don't question LSU's effort once they step on the field. I just wonder, with everything that's going on, I just can't imagine that mentally you prep for a game like this and can be fully invested like maybe you with everything that's going on.
When it comes down to on the field, I think, when you look at this, at the breakdowns that we've seen to this point, you may look at LSU's statistics and think, they're not really all that impressive. They're 80th in the country, for example, in total offense, 58th in rushing, 79th in passing. Not really well known as a passing team, but their calling card is defense. And the thing that kind of jumps out to me is 9th in the country in team pass efficiency defense. This team knows how to defend against the pass. We saw the passing dimension of DJ Mack open up in the conference championship game, but you've made this point a couple times a little bit later in the show, which we'll get to, Elo, but I think it bears repeating, is that this game feels like it's going to be one in the trenches, that it's going to be a game between the front sevens and the offensive lines to see who's going to blink first. And we're going to see probably a little bit different attack from UCF in terms of rushing. I think we know that Darryl Mack is a much better runner with the football than Mackenzie Milton was. Obviously, that part of that's fairly obvious, at least at this point. But the other part of it is by choice. And I also think that UCF's defense knows what it's going to be up against as well. And I'm a little bit worried about some of the about how UCF has defended the run to this point. But how do you see this game sort of panning out from an X's and O's perspective?
Well, I would say a couple things. I mean, we and it's not just us. Everybody in the sports media, we spend like hours and hours and weeks breaking down a game, and sometimes it's the most basic thing. Tell me how the line of scrimmage is being won. And I had a chance to, I watched the Peach Bowl once recently when UCF beat Auburn, and I remember Scott Frost in the post game. I think he was talking to Allison Williams, and he said, "I felt good about our chances as long as we could block them, and if we could block them, I liked our chances." And that's what UCF. And really, if you think about that, it's such a simple thing to say, right?
Yeah.
And if you remember, Jeff, you were there at the game. What did UCF do? Why was one of the reasons why UCF was successful against Auburn? Because Mackenzie Milton had time to throw.
Yeah, they kept him upright.
And by the way, who was at Stidham's backfield almost the entire game? It was a guy named Shaquem Griffin.
Shaquem Griffin, that's right.
UCF won the line of scrimmage, and that's why they won the game. So I think this isn't just as big of a part. Look, there's no secret what LSU does here. They're going to run the football, and they're going to try to be physical on UCF. And they've watched tape. They've seen what Memphis and Temple did to this line, even FAU, and they feel they can do the same. And I'm curious to see how UCF responds to that on that side of the ball and handle the physicality when this is some big boys you're talking about, the LSU offensive line. So I think that's going to be a fascinating, simple game in the line of scrimmage. And I think the other side of the ball, Dave Aranda, who is one of the better defensive minds in the sport, one of the better defensive coordinators, well paid, well compensated for a good reason. His scheme is to let his corners play one-on-one and then put pressure on the quarterback. What does he come up with against UCF's offense and Josh Heupel and the chess match there? I think is going to be fascinating. I'll tell you this will not be a good sign for UCF, and at some point on January 1st, Jeff is tweeting out, wow, this Dave Aranda has got a heck of a scheme going on, and we're struggling with him. If that happens, that could be a trouble for UCF. It's going to be interesting what he comes up with from a scheme standpoint and how Heupel and UCF adjust to that with a quarterback that, while he has made starts, is still inexperienced, and this is the biggest game and the biggest light that Mr. Mack will be participating in.
Yeah, I feel like the key here for UCF, Eric, is going to be that they have to get the lead in this game, and they have to try and force LSU into a situation.
I think you can say that for both sides.
Yeah,
you can say that for both sides. Yeah.
I don't think this is if one team goes up by more than one score, I think this game could be over. I mean, UCF, when we look back at last year, they were down in the third quarter 20-13, and it still didn't feel like UCF was entirely out of the game, but obviously they went on that they scored that 21 unanswered, but it feels like whichever team is going to have the lead, if you go up by a touchdown or more, you really have the hammer, because you can tee off a little bit, and listen, I'll be honest with you, I had my own doubts about Darryl Mack coming into the conference championship game because I wasn't confident in his ability to throw the ball, and he proved me and everybody else wrong in that conference championship game. But this is a different challenge than Memphis. Due respect to Memphis and their defense, but this is LSU, man. This is NFL speed you're going up against, even with their top two corners missing. The thing is with teams in the SEC, if you take away their top two corners, guess what? The two kids behind them are NFL prospects too. Right? So this is going to be, I think that this is going to be a key game for UCF's receivers. Can they get open? And I think that actually very similar to last year, I think that the other key for UCF on offense is going to be, what does Darryl Mack do with his feet? Remember last year in the Peach Bowl, the key for UCF that really kept them in the game was Mackenzie Milton's legs. He ran in that game for 116 yards, at a time when he really didn't throw the ball all that well. He was only 16-35 throwing, and that was with a pretty good second half. His first half was hot garbage, and he'll tell you that straight away. But I'm going to be interested to see what what sort of wrinkles Josh Heupel has in store to try and get LSU into a situation where they're always guessing wrong as to who has the football in UCF's backfield.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think here's something to keep in mind. One of the positives that why coaches and a lot of people like these bowl games, practice. And Max had a lot of practice here, probably more practice than he's had maybe even during the season, getting a lot of reps, getting all the reps. So I think that'll be a positive, and that'll help him out. But I'm curious to see, like you said, I'll be interested to see what Aranda kind of lines up here and maybe see some things. Sometimes teams in these, when you have such a long layoff, maybe come up with a couple of wrinkles that you don't get to see on tape because they haven't used it all year.
Yeah. Now, the other side, when it comes to UCF's defense, I think that you can't afford to, again, like we said earlier, fall down very much like you did in some of those other games. I know that UCF has played 6 of their 12 games to this point against top 20 rushing offenses. I don't care what the numbers say. You know what you're going to get from LSU. They are going to run the football. They're not going to quite simply because their passing game right now to this year has just not been where it is. You could easily see a situation where maybe they could outthink themselves and do maybe what Randy Shannon was doing in the conference championship game, which was I'm going to play my two deep shell for the first half and make my adjustments afterwards. Well, that two deep shell got you down in a hurry in that game by quite a bit. I don't think there's any, even if LSU has a speed advantage on the outside, their quarterback isn't necessarily prepared to make those kinds of throws. And if you trust UCF secondary, as I think that Randy Shannon should in this case, I think you should you should play up on the run and dare their quarterback to beat you. But I don't know. Am I wrong in assessing that?
No, I agree, but I thought he would do the same thing against Memphis.
Yeah.
So that's why I agree 100%. I think the secondary is the strength of UCF. I don't see why you don't put 7-8 in the box early at least, and really force Burrows to throw the football. That's how LSU lost to Florida. Florida was able to control that line of scrimmage and make Burrows make throws that he's not a guy that LSU wants to be throwing the football 35, 40 times. That's not their game. If that's their game, they're in trouble. So I'm 100% behind you on that.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot to talk about, and yet not quite as much because sort of the news hasn't begun to start yet this week. But we still want to get you prepared as some of you guys are probably heading out to Phoenix right now, listening to this podcast. So Brian Murphy himself is actually on his way out to Phoenix for what will be a busy week of Fiesta Bowl preparation between UCF and LSU, and he joined us from Hobby Airport in Houston as he was connecting a little earlier tonight to get out to Phoenix to sort of talk about the UCF side of things in preparation for this game as they left out there, by the way, with Mackenzie Milton in tow, it should be noted, as they flew out to Phoenix for the game. So here is, without further ado, our very own Brian Murphy talking with us on his way out to Phoenix. And joining us now from the William P. Hobby Airport in Houston, Texas, literally from the Hobby lobby, I guess you could say. Terrible dad joke, I know, is Brian Murphy on his way out to Phoenix to cover the game. We are literally everywhere with this team. So how's the trip so far, Brian?
It's been very nice, Jeffrey. I'm in front of illustrious Gate 23, where my plane flight being delayed has allowed me to be a part of this podcast. Don't you feel lucky?
I do feel extremely lucky. What about any UCF fans alongside you? Saying like, "Hey, Brian Murphy, what's up?"
No. But I did count, I think, 3 people on the connecting flight from Orlando to Houston dressed in UCF gear. So 3.
So the Armada is on its way. So you're on your way out there. Press conference is going to be Friday. We're recording this on Thursday. Recording this interview on Thursday night. As you're waiting to connect out to Phoenix, what's the stuff that we know right now about UCF heading out to the bowl game?
They're undefeated. Let's see, what else do we know? They're playing in the Fiesta Bowl.
How many players are actually playing, Murph?
Yeah.
Lots. Many guys.
Most of them are out there.
Some freshmen. What a very broad question. What do we know? What do we know about UCF? I feel like, I don't know. This is me projecting. This is not about UCF. This is more about me. Like, I would say going to this bowl game, I feel a lot more confident heading into this bowl game than I did heading into this time last year to Atlanta to face Auburn.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that would be. I mean, I would too if I was these players because you've been there before. You've played on that stage before. You played against an SEC foe before. LSU's got 3 guys out. Was almost more, which we'll get to in a second. But you said Mackenzie Milton is out on the plane, so he's been cleared to travel at least, which I guess is good news for his recovery, right?
Yes, we had known at least a week ago not only that he would be there, but he would travel with the team on their charter, which is a child screams behind me. That's
common at Houston Airport.
Yeah. But no, it's a good sign for his recovery because he doesn't need his own private plane to get there for him to travel with the team. It's a good sign. It could be worse. So, but I think in spirit, to have him there. And there was a presser at the airport today in which Wyatt Miller and Titus Davis talked about how awesome it is that he's with them, and just, he's one of them. He's their brother. He's always there for them. So for him to be there in person, really not just for the game, but for the entire prep week in Arizona, I think it's going to be a pretty big motivational lift for them.
To what extent does he help from a football perspective?
I think it's just more about like preparing Darryl Mack for this stage, right? Like, what can he really say about LSU that the coaches and the players don't already see? Like, he doesn't have like inside knowledge on LSU, but I think as far as talking to the guys who haven't been on this stage, specifically Mack, about how to deal with the early jitters. I mean, we saw this with McKenzie last year in Atlanta. Like, he came out in that game against Auburn, and it was not pretty. It was rough to start. And I think he's going to talk a lot to Darryl about that this week, about how you sort of deal with those sort of inevitable nerves. I think that's the biggest thing that he can really add to this team as far as on-field product.
Well, Murph, I'm just curious. I'm fascinated to see how they handle this week. It does feel different, in my opinion. I don't know, Jeff, if you feel this way. The Auburn game, there was so much buzz around the game. Fans, they sold, there were so many emails and press releases about ticket sales are through the roof, and how everybody was driving to Atlanta, and they got Auburn and undefeated season. You got the whole Scott Frost saga. This has been a lot quieter. We know the head coach is staying. That's for starters. There has been no press releases from anybody, whether it be UCF, LSU, or the Fiesta Bowl, that ticket sales are doing great or they've sold out or any of that, which would suggest that they haven't sold many tickets, or at least sold them out to that degree. So I'm curious, do you think that, and then, we spent so much time talking about Florida and UCF that nobody's really been talking about this game. I'm just kind of curious, is it like, do you think it's going to be a low-key kind of deal up until kickoff here, or do you think it'll pick up?
No, it'll pick up. Certainly now that both teams will be here. Actually, LSU isn't, I don't think, as we're recording this at 8 o'clock Central Time, I don't think LSU is in Arizona yet, at least for another hour. Their plane got delayed, which is sort of a microcosm of their entire month. It's been a weird month for LSU football. So I think now that both teams will get there today, and as we go through the pressers and the practices, I think people will and then you get the pregame talk, and so yeah, it'll ramp up, but it won't be at the level of Auburn, because Auburn, that game, the Peach Bowl, it felt fresh. It felt, it was new in the sense that they hadn't been to a New Year's Six bowl game, so to speak, since 2014 at Fiesta Bowl. They had undefeated season for the first time. There was real championship talk and real talk about could UCF hang with the big dogs of the SEC. Well, we know they can, because they did it, and now we get to see it again. So the second time through, yeah, there's a little less luster on it, because we've already seen this story. It's just a different opponent. It's like a new Rocky movie, basically.
Nice analogy. So we're gonna touch upon this with Stephen Baker from And the Valley Shook here in a little bit, but you touched upon it, like what a traumatic week this has kind of been for, a month it's been really for LSU. 3 guys not playing. 2 of them due to the NFL draft, 1 of them due to injury, and they almost lost another 2 guys because of an incident involving shots fired in self-defense. What's about this?
Well, according to the reports, a man tried to rob or hold up 2 LSU football players in Louisiana. I want to say last week, and one of those LSU players had a gun on him and wasn't playing, and fired 3 times and killed the man who's trying to rob them. And, they claim self-defense. There will be no penalty for them for this bowl game, or I don't even know if any sort of judicial penalty for them. I think it's all been sort of wiped away as self-defense. But there's that. And then there's, a really sad story about an LSU player, I believe, lost one of his parents. One of his parents died just a couple of days ago. You mix that in with the guys who aren't here or aren't in Arizona because of the draft or injury. Their plane is late today. It's just been nothing has been on schedule, and that does. I don't want to minimize what a player is going through mourning a parent, but from a football standpoint, if I may be so sort of crass and dead about it. It's just another thing that it really is. It's not been an on-schedule week or month for this program.
Yeah, it's plus, Coach O is yelling at people during press conferences. I mean, it's just
that was great.
Golly.
But we're thankful for that. The internet needed it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I know.
Listen, that's the only thing I'm looking forward to is Ed Orgeron press conferences this week. Quite frankly, that might be the highlight of the week. I mean, come on.
I'm looking forward to the professional transcriptionists who will be typing that out.
So my question is, does Ed Orgeron refer to us as UCF, or does he go straight to Florida?
No, I think it's UCF. I think he's already said UCF. Yeah, because we had the teleconference on the day the bowl game was announced, and I think he said UCF a few times.
Look, man, if there's anything we've known about the last year, it's that the branding has finally gotten through. So,
you're surprised. Let me ask. Let's talk about on the field here, Murph.
Yes.
To me, this is a very simplistic game. To me, this is a line of scrimmage game. If LSU is physical with UCF and dominates and runs the football, it controls the clock and keeps their defense fresh, then I think it's an LSU type of game. But if UCF line of scrimmage plays up to kind of like they did against Auburn last year and plays up to like they've done like most second halves against Memphis, I don't see how LSU could stay with UCF because to me, with LSU, you mentioned some of the department. I mean, they're shorthanded on defense, secondary.
Yes, very much so.
And I think UCF can expose them on that. And I don't think LSU is a type of team that's going to come back from a 14, 21-point deficit. So I think the line of scrimmage, to me, tell me how the line of scrimmage is going, and we probably find out who our winner is, right?
I agree. I mean, a lot of this game does mirror and what LSU likes to do, to kind of mirrors what Auburn liked to do last year with a quarterback who wants to manage it. Joe Burrow really manages things more. They ask him to do less than Auburn asked of Jarrett Stidham. And then really what they want to do is they want to pound you. They want to run it, 25 times with multiple backs. They want to beat you up front. So, yeah, I think for UCF, the two things to watch on defense is not only how UCF wins that battle, how they compete in that battle in the trenches against some really athletic, long linemen. But, LSU's receivers, there's not a Jarvis Landry or Odell Beckham in this group. But what there is a bunch of huge dudes, really a bunch of big guys, tough physical, tough from a matchup standpoint in terms of physicality. I think it was Coach Shane Burnham, the defensive line coach for UCF, said that their wide receivers look like tight ends, and that kind of matchup with against smaller corners like Brandon Moore or Rashard Kazi out of the slot. That'll be a matchup certainly to watch about how those guys deal with really big receivers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you're in the airport. You're getting ready to go. It should be a pretty interesting matchup, which we'll find out more about. What are you going to be working on as you get to Phoenix tonight and then into the weekend?
I'm looking forward to just seeing what they tell me tomorrow. We will base everything. We'll base everything off of our long availabilities. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We got media days for both squads. Just looking forward to seeing someone's going to say something kind of spicy. Someone on some side, one side or the other, will say something that kind of perks up all the ears. And that's what we're looking forward to.
Good stuff. Maybe it'll be Adrian Killens again this year. All right, Brian Murphy joined us from Hobby Airport. I know you got to get going and catch your flight out to Phoenix. Travel safely. We'll talk to you out there, all right?
Thanks, kids.
All right, thanks again to Brian, _Murphy on Twitter if you're following at home, and you should be. He'll be tweeting live the game. He'll be tweeting the game live as he always does from the press box in Glendale. So it's kind of like the hurry up and wait, right, Eric? We're here, we're together for the bowl game, and what do we do? What do we talk about? And maybe we'll find something, but I don't know if we found it just yet. At least as of recording time, who knows? By Friday, we might have something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who knows? We'll see. We'll see. I'm curious to see, what's your thoughts here for Glendale? They're not obviously going to draw the crowd they did for the Peach Bowl. It's not going to happen. I mean, you're talking about a driving distance versus a flight. Do they draw more than they did for Baylor? And I know some people think, and that's been an interesting debate, some people say yes because the program has grown and all that. I'm not so sure about that. I mean, flights are still expensive. When you have the Fiesta Bowl executive going on the Paul Feinbaum show and pretty much call out the airlines not being real helpful, that's never a good sign when how tickets are going. I just wonder if a lot of people just decided to watch the game home. I think this will actually, from a television standpoint, locally, I think this will be a higher rated game than the Peach Bowl, because I think more people are going to be watching this game in town than last year when a lot of them actually went to the game. So I'm just curious how they'll draw, and where kind of the excitement level will be in the stands there come January 1st.
That's interesting. The last time UCF was in the Peach Bowl, or was in the Fiesta Bowl in 2013, when they beat Baylor, the attendance was 65,000 announced. And at the time, that was the smallest attendance for that game since the Fiesta Bowl moved to the new stadium in 2007, where it used to be played at Sun Devil Stadium over at Arizona State. I happen to agree with you. I don't think that I don't think that the attendance, the in-game attendance, is going to be quite up to standards. I think it'll probably surprise people, like how high it is, but I don't think it'll be, in terms of the UCF allotment, I don't think it'll quite be up to the level that 2013 was. I hope I'm wrong. I don't know, because like you said, that's a real logistical haul for, say, families of four who can afford that kind of thing. But I do think that the television ratings, you're right, that could be a boon for the TV ratings, especially locally. I think the problem there is it's on at a busy time slot on New Year's Day, right?
Right.
Because you have, I think it's at least two other games going on at that time. Is that right?
Penn State, Kentucky, and the Citrus Bowl in Orlando, ironically enough, for the second year in a row.
Yeah.
UCF's going up against the bowl game in Orlando. And there's another game on, I believe, at the same time.
There's the Outback Bowl. Yeah, that kicks off at noon between Mississippi State and Iowa, and then there's the Citrus Bowls, Kentucky and Penn State, and then UCF at 1.
So I don't think it'll come close to the most watched UCF game of all time in the Orlando market was the 2014 Fiesta Bowl against Baylor, but that was a primetime game.
Right, that was an 8:30 kick, wasn't it?
Yes, and there was no other football game going on that night, compared to an afternoon game early where people are still going out and stuff like that, and there's other football games to pick from, even other stuff to watch, like hockey games and stuff like that. There's a hockey game outdoors that goes on at that time. So, no, I don't think it'll come close to that game, but I do think it has a chance to be higher locally than the Peach Bowl because, again, more people are going to be in town. The other thing is the national rating will be interesting because LSU's a big draw with that New Orleans market. So I would not be surprised if the Fiesta Bowl maybe draws slightly more people than the Peach Bowl because of the LSU draw in the New Orleans market. Plus, I think the Fiesta Bowl is quite frankly looked at, even though they're all quote-unquote the same bowl game now as far as the New Year's Six. The Fiesta Bowl has way more tradition than the Peach Bowl as far as, wow, that's a marquee bowl game. The Peach Bowl just recently became a marquee bowl game in this system. So I could see the Fiesta Bowl being a higher-rated game. The only thing that hurts it, though, it will not have the playoff to help it. But they are going up against the Rose Bowl, which is usually a very well, rated game as well. So
right.
I think it'll draw well television-wise.
Well, I think it'll also be interesting to see how does that, if the game is close, how does that affect?
Absolutely.
Or if one of the other games is close, like for example, if Kentucky and Penn State in the Citrus Bowl, if that game's tight late, how does that affect the UCF ratings as well? So.
That's a great point. And keep in mind, last year, UCF nationally had to go up against Notre Dame and Michigan. Michigan was in the Outback Bowl. Notre Dame was in the Citrus Bowl. Two
right.
Powerhouses in TV this year. You're going up against Kentucky and Penn State, with all due respect, not powerhouses when it comes to TV.
Well, Penn State is, but the other game that they're going up against, the Outback Bowl, is Mississippi State and Iowa.
Yeah.
Hardly anyone's going to be watching that game, I think.
I agree. So I think the Fiesta Bowl will be higher rated nationally than the Peach Bowl was last year because of that, and the LSU draw. LSU is a huge draw in television. That New Orleans market, man, it's one of the top college markets and really football markets because the NFL, they draw big too with the Saints. It's a huge market for football, and I think that'll help it.
Plus, this is the only game between ranked teams in that time slot. None of the other four teams are ranked. So that is another thing worth bearing in mind. So again, 1 p.m. New Year's Day, which is Tuesday, January 1st, on ESPN, the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, UCF against LSU from Glendale.
Brian Greasy, along with Steve Levy,
yep.
and we'll be there with Todd McShay. They called the American Championship game last year.
Right. So they are at least so they have a little UCF winning streak going on with that crew, so that's good. All right. When we come back, we will have our special guest joining us from andthevalley.com, the LSU team site for SB Nation. Stephen Baker joins us to talk about the Tigers coming in, what to expect from LSU, and some tips for UCF fans on interacting with our folks, our friends from the Bayou. Stick around. We'll be right back. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is brought to you by Orlando Homes Express, brokered by eXp Realty. Sam Unger and his team at Orlando Homes Express proudly serve Orange, Seminole, and Lake counties, specializing in buying, selling, and new construction. Sam is a very proud UCF graduate, class of 2006, and he's got a special deal going on right now for the 2018 UCF football season. Night fans, in honor of UCF's 25-game win streak, Sam is running a special for the whole month of December. If you use him as your realtor to buy or sell your home, you'll receive up to $2,500 at closing. So, if you're ready to buy a new home or sell your current home, upgrade or downsize, Sam and his team have you covered so you can find the right home at the right price in the right location. So give them a call right now at 407-790-9957. Again, that's 407-790-9957. Or visit them on the web at WeSellOrlando.net. Again, that's WeSellOrlando.net. You can also reach them on Facebook at Facebook.com/WeSellOrlando. Get in touch with the Orlando Homes Express today and make finding your dream home a reality.
Hello, Night Nation. I'm Andrew Fegley.
And I'm Trey Strelko. Where are we? This isn't our usual spot.
It looks like we've landed in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those guys.
You know, Nightline has UCF sports covered.
Week in and week out, we bring you interviews with newsmakers and in-depth analysis of UCF sports.
Subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to subscribe to Nightline on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at UCF_Nightline.
Trace, can we go back to the 1148 studios now and start working on our next all-new Nightline?
How do we get out of here? Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now back to you guys in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you. blackandgoldbanneret.com is the site. UCF_Banneret on Twitter. Facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret. All right. So, like we said, one of the great things about being part of SB Nation is we can talk to folks who cover the other teams we play regularly, and are part of the SB Nation family. So we reached out to our good friends at andthevalley.com. That's the LSU team site. Reference, by the way, to the earthquake game in 1988, Eric Lopez, between LSU and Auburn. andthevalley.com, and Stephen Baker, one of the editors, is kind enough to join us to talk a little LSU. And here it is. Here's our conversation with Stephen Baker of andthevalley.com. And joining us now from our SB Nation sister site, And the Valley Shook, covering the LSU Tigers, editor for the site and supposedly designated bomb thrower, Stephen Baker, joining us from his cozy home in Dallas, Texas, which is approximately midway between here and Phoenix. But nonetheless, he'll be covering the game for And the Valley Shook as well as pretty much everybody for the SB Nation LSU site. Steve, what's up, man? Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. And you cannot stop at my place on the way. There's just not enough room for y'all.
Well, you know what's funny is, like, we know a few people who are actually driving and are actually making their second drive out to Phoenix for this game, because UCF went out to the Fiesta Bowl in 2013 and threw when they threw 52 on Baylor, and I think these people are insane that drive I-10 the whole freaking way. Like, I can't do.
That's a tough drive.
Yeah, I can't do Orlando to Tallahassee. You know, I mean, because that's like 75 to 10, and it's like you finally hit 10 in Lake City, and you're like, God, I have another 3 hours of this. Are you serious? Like,
I will say it's an easy drive because it's flat pretty much the whole way, but man, Texas goes on forever.
God, it's
forever.
Buddy of mine said it was a 5,000 mile round trip. I know.
Fly.
that.
Come on, people.
I know. Well, let's talk some football. So LSU coming in. This is kind of a different. We had our guy out in Phoenix, Brian Murphy, who's traveling out there right now. We just had him on. He was talking about how there's some similarities between last year's game, from the UCF side, playing against Auburn, team from the SEC West, that didn't knock off Bama quite to the degree that maybe the rest of the nation would have hoped.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
We haven't seen them since 2011. We're a little
sorry, dude, but
it's okay.
But it's a different situation where it wasn't like LSU was an eyelash from competing for a national championship either. So I guess if you could evaluate LSU season to this point, how would you evaluate it?
This has actually kind of been a raging debate for us. I think it's been a roaring success. LSU came into the year picked to finish 5th in the SEC West. And as much as I tried to make it into this is the SEC showing us no respect, 5th was a pretty fair pick. LSU came into the season pretty much with a brand new offense. They had a new offensive coordinator. They also lost a lot on defense. This is just one of the youngest teams in the country. If you look at our depth chart, there's barely any seniors on it, which is LSU rarely has a whole bunch of seniors on their depth chart because so many guys go pro early. But this is extreme even by LSU standards. They had to replace their starting quarterback, their top 2 running backs, and their top 2 wide receivers, and 4 of their 5 players on the offensive line. I mean, this was a rebuild. And instead, LSU was in the top 10 for almost the entire year. They pulled off some huge wins. Alabama crushed us again. And, I mean, that's kind of the dark cloud that hangs around the silver lining. So that's kind of crushing everybody. And this team just wasn't good enough to beat Bama this year. And then it closed off on that A&M game. I don't know if you saw that, but I'm still bitter about it. Yeah. We got hosed, and
rightfully so. You did get hosed. Yeah.
I think honestly the only reason LSU was in the Fiesta Bowl is because the committee didn't really treat it as a full loss. I think they kind of treated it as only half a loss.
Right.
You lost. We're going to knock you down a little bit, but that wasn't a real loss. And so honestly, that made me feel better about it because everybody in the country kind of you got screwed, and that happens. And as long as everyone recognized we got screwed, I'm okay with it. So,
well, you came to the right podcast. UCF. Many people believe they've been screwed all year in the last 2 years by the.
Let's talk about getting screwed. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. I think last year you guys had a better case. I think this year was just such a. No one lost. I mean, you have an undefeated Notre Dame out there, and that hurts you. Clemson and Alabama, ran the table. So, I mean, there's Ohio State that was out there, and Oklahoma only had the 1 loss, and it was only by I know they were down by 20 points at Texas, but at the end of the day, they only lost by 1 score, and they did avenge it in the Big 12. And your schedule isn't that good. To be honest, look, I'm pulling for you guys because, I think it's, if nothing else, it's funny. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. I mean that in the glory of college football kind of way. I love small schools, placing a claim on the national championship and screwing the system and throwing a monkey wrench into everything. But this year, there just wasn't an opening. I mean, no one really lost and gave you that opportunity to slide in there.
You know what the funny part is about that is last year I would say that that UCF got dealt a royal flush. Everything came together in the right spot. This year it wasn't a royal flush. It wasn't 2 pair though. It was kind of an inside straight draw. Right.
Yeah.
And we're going to find out, what they're able to come up with here on the river. But I didn't think at the start of this year that UCF would go undefeated again. And I was actually one of the few guys on our staff that actually thought that. I thought we would go 10-2. And I thought that the two of the games that we played close, I thought were the 2 that we would probably lose. I thought that we would lose to Memphis. We beat them by 1 point. And I thought that we would lose to USF, possibly on the road, but I didn't expect USF to completely pancake the way that they did. And you're right, the conference, as we've seen in the bowl games, which Eric thinks are still meaningless, but whatever. has not exactly had the
Thank you.
has not exactly had the best assurance.
Well, I mean, have for this.
Well, right, but here's the thing: is like, yes, they're meaningless, but they're only meaningless in the minds of people who say that they're meaningless. And because what's the talking point going to be about the American Athletic Conference coming out of this bowl season? Oh, they stink because they all went 1-6 or whatever it is in bowl games.
Look, narratives are going to get born out of bowl season every year. And I do think the further up the chain you go, the more the game matters. Obviously, the Cotton Bowl is going to matter because it's a playoff game.
Yeah.
I think the Fiesta Bowl matters because it's now, it's whatever we now call the BCS Bowls now. What are they?
The New Year's Six.
Yeah, the New Year's Six. I mean, I think that matters because it's the New Year's Six Bowl. I'm not going to say it's completely meaningless, but, you get down to the Cheez-It Bowl. Nothing against Cheez-Its, which I find delicious.
That game was atrocious, by the way.
Yeah, no one really cares. But yes, you're right. They will build narratives out this. You show me a team overrated in the preseason, and I'll show you a team that probably won their bowl last year.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a fair point. But now let's look at your roster, though, because there's some players that are not going to play in this game for various reasons. Focus more on the NFL draft. So is LSU kind of the – and this is not the first time. This is not the first time LSU is going to be shorthanded in bowl games. This is now becoming a trend. Starting with Leonard Fournette and company like that. So my question to you is, are LSU going to be fired up and ready to play this game and excited to be playing this game, or is their minds somewhere else?
Well, I think the players who are there are going to be focused on the game. But yes, there are a lot of guys who aren't there. And like Leonard Fournette sitting out didn't bother me because he was hurt that entire season. And running backs, as we all know, have a very short career. He had to protect that ankle. Go make your money, son. Greedy Williams bothers me a little bit. I mean, it's still his decision. I know he's playing in a free league, and this is his you don't want to jeopardize your future. He's going to be a top 10 pick. But at the same time, he's a sophomore. What are the chances a non-physical cornerback has a debilitating injury in the bowl game? That one kind of sticks in my craw a little bit. But Devin White is probably our best defensive player. He's draft eligible. He's a possible top 10 pick. He hasn't declared yet, and he's going to play. We are missing both our top two corners. We're missing both of our defensive tackles, which is really going to hurt. We have a suspension. I think Jacob Phillips is going to be suspended for the first half because I think he got flagged in the A&M game. Don't hold me to that. And John Battle, our starting free safety, he was in the fight after the game. They haven't publicly said what his punishment is, but I wouldn't expect him to play at least the first quarter. We've been missing our best pass rusher the entire season. We're missing about half our defense. And I don't want to say that's an excuse. I'm just saying that's the reality. But then again, you guys are missing your starting quarterback. So
right.
Everybody has an excuse of how to lose this game. I think the guys who are going to play are going to be motivated. On the flip side, our offensive line has been banged up all year, and they're going to be fully healthy for the first time for the Fiesta Bowl. And that bodes well for this team. So you lose it on one hand, you gain it on the other.
Yeah. So Coach O is he kind of one of these guys that you could see as practically he's going to get the benefit of the doubt from LSU fans just because of his personality, his gregariousness. He gets LSU, or how much patience do fans really have with him? How many times can LSU go 9-3 and lose to Bama before they start losing their patience with him?
If the perfect LSU season is one in which we win the national title and fire the coach. Coach O came into the season legitimately on the hot seat. The funny accent only buys you good graces for a year. That said, this year 9-3 was overachieving. So I think this did buy him some good graces because this team played better than we thought it was going to in September, and that means a lot. On the flip side, our offense is still a mess. We're taking tentative steps into 1995, but this is still an offense that you see other teams going around slinging the ball around all over the place, and we're still 3 yards in a cloud of dust. That's just the team we are. On the flip side, to O's credit, or at least his defense, LSU as a team this year, as I told you earlier, with an entirely new offense. So you don't want to completely get crazy on offense. And he had almost all of his defense coming back. So if you're going to play 3 yards in a cloud of dust, this was the team to do it with. Because you want to put the emphasis on your better unit, which was clearly the defense.
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to expect to see here on January 1st against UCF? Do you think they're just going to try to run the football, try to make this a physical game, try to dominate UCF up front, kind of like Memphis did a couple times running the ball in the first halves against UCF? UCF struggled against the run against Memphis and Temple, among others. Is this the type of game LSU is going to play, or do you think they might try some different wrinkles here? Because after all, it is a bowl game.
I think we're going to see option 2. First off, we don't have a running back like Memphis does. That's a weird thing for an LSU fan to say. We're used to a long line of great running backs. Our running backs are good, but they're pretty ordinary. This is not Henderson. Or for our team, this is not Darius Geis. This is not Leonard Fournette. Clyde Edwards-Helaire also had an off-field incident, which we don't really know how it's going to work itself out. And I just don't know what his status is for the game yet. But Brissett's kind of a bruising runner. But the big thing is our running backs just can't – they don't bust big plays. It's 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards. So I think – considering we're missing so much of our defense and our running backs really aren't that spectacular, I think we are going to try and throw the ball. We're going to have our offensive line finally back. We have a deep receiving core that's been inconsistent this year, but it's a lot of freshmen. We start 2 freshmen and a sophomore. So I think you're going to see LSU try and debut next year's offense in this game, which would be nice. I want to see this team take more chances, try and go at UCF. And I say that with all respect for UCF, because I think UCF's a really good team. I don't think if LSU plays a very conservative game, I don't think we have a chance of winning. LSU's got to throw the ball. They've got to put points up. And I think Orgeron knows that.
You mentioned the Clyde Edwards-Helaire situation, and he was involved in basically a shooting that was deemed to be at least in self-defense with linebacker Jared Small. All right, so what do you and the LSU folks know about this situation? Because this kind of thing has been moving by the second. It's kind of a bizarre situation that ended up with an 18-year-old kid dead. And it's a terrible situation. Obviously, really scary, but. What the hell happened?
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much out of school because it's still hazy details.
Yeah.
And also, that's clearly someone's life is clearly more important than a football game. But what we know, I think, from the statement of the police was that they were setting up a deal on Craigslist or something like that to sell a PS4, so probably because of the gift from the Fiesta Bowl. Let's be honest. Or he was selling his old system. We don't know. But when Clyde Edwards-Helaire got to the meet, the other party tried to rob him at gunpoint, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire pulled out a gun. Or we don't know. It could have been the other player who's a squad linebacker. I don't know his name.
Jared Small is his name.
Yeah, he's a walk-on linebacker. One of the two of them then drew a gun back and shot in self-defense the person trying to rob them. And then also to their credit, they then immediately called 911 and waited for the police to arrive. So this was the reason the cops found out about the shooting and found out about the suspects is because it was the players themselves that called it in. And they were interviewed for several hours, and then it was the police who released the statement that said, we're releasing them on their own recognizance. They're currently not suspects. We think it was in self-defense. We don't know if anything else is going to come out of this. It's just a tragedy. It's senseless. Why would you it's a video game system, guys. Don't try and shoot someone over it. And I mean, if someone draws a gun on you, particularly in the deep South with a gun culture, someone's going to draw back on you. It's the stand your ground law. I mean, you have the right to defend yourself, but at the same time, it's just sad. So,
yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of UCF fans, look at that through the prism obviously of the football game, which, I get at first glance, but, obviously you're right. It's a sad situation. I mean, we're glad, obviously, that, Clyde and Jared are okay. But again, it's sad that apparently the kid who died was 18 years old, died at the scene. It's just
a tragic thing. But also, like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has never been in a lick of trouble. He's a good kid. And also, he kept his head about him. I mean, I do salute him in the fact, I don't salute him for shooting someone. I mean, even in self-defense, I just think that's a horrible burden for a person to carry. But the fact that after it happened, he immediately called 911. He waited for the cops. He, told them the whole story. I think that says something about his character, just how he handled it afterwards.
Yeah.
That, they didn't run from it and come up with some crazy story, because that's how you get into serious, serious trouble, is when you try and cover it
right
up.
Or as we've seen in other situations involving other people, like they panic and run, and
exactly,
and that's another thing. But it's, I mean, not to pass judgment on anybody, but it's a sad story how it came out, and it's unfortunate that it has obviously an effect in the game, which we're all going to try. All right, let's try and brighten this thing up a little bit. All right,
let's
I want to ask about Dave Aranda, who I'm a fan of from afar. I followed him even prior to his arrival at LSU when he was at Wisconsin. I think he's one of the best defensive coaches out there. In fact, I made the comment on a recent episode that Jeff was kind of caught off guard when I said I think Dave Aranda is the best defensive coordinator UCF has seen in the 2-year run here by far. Like, I don't even think it's close. But I'm curious because I follow LSU closely. I've been to a game there. I know they. With their secondary, they put a lot of responsibilities on the secondary to play man-to-man so they can get pressure on the quarterback. But as we've mentioned, they're going to be shorthanded in the secondary. How do you see Dave Aranda's scheme changing, if at all, going up against Daryl McAnuke, who's making his third career start here in this bowl game? Do you think he's going to change the scheme up because he's shorthanded? Or does he stay with the plan and give the other young guys opportunities, and that maybe there could be a big part of 2019?
First thing, I do agree with you that Dave Aranda is one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. There's a reason he gets paid as much as he does. I think he's the highest paid coordinator in the country. If not, he's top 3. He's great. And one of the big things about Aranda is that he's very flexible. He definitely can make adjustments to the opponent, and also he's really good at mid-game adjustments. If one thing's beating him, he can come back with something else. I think one of the things that caught him in the A&M game in the overtimes is that he lost Fulton, and then he lost Kelvin Joseph. So he was down our number 2 and our number 3 corner, and he hadn't had a chance to re-scheme. He didn't have a chance to go to the locker room on it because he lost those guys in the 3rd and 4th quarter. And so he was throwing out Terrence Alexander, who was just getting killed out there. Now, the good news for y'all is Terrence Alexander's now going to start because Fulton's not going to play. He's had surgery. Greedy Williams is now out. So, but I think with a full month to coach Terrence Alexander and also figure out ways to hide him, I think he's going to run that same man scheme. And I think the reason is the other reason you touched on. We're going up against a quarterback who's only had 2 starts. I'm willing to bet our weakness at the second cornerback slot is going to outweigh the weakness at your quarterback position, particularly because our safeties are still great. Yes, we're missing our 2 top corners, and Kelvin Joseph's going to be back, so he's our number 3 corner. I have full confidence in him playing as our number 1 corner. He's nowhere near as good as Greedy or Fulton are, but Kelvin Joseph is still he's a freshman. He's been playing great all year. At this point, he's a veteran. I mean, at this point, you're comfortable, you're a freshman. But our safeties, Grant Delpit, Todd Harris, Jacoby Stevens, John Battle, all 4 of those guys, and Ed Paris comes off the bench. I mean, that's 5 guys. What he will probably do is tempt you into going at Terrence Alexander, and Grant Delpit's going to pop up out of nowhere and get an interception because that's what Grant Delpit does. For all of the hype that Devin White gets, and it's deserved, Devin White is a great football player, and one of the things Aranda is really good at is coaching up linebackers, and I think Devin White has truly benefited from having Aranda as his head coach. But Grant Delpit's a sophomore. He's our strong safety. He is one of the best safeties I have ever seen in an LSU uniform, and we've had some great ones. I mean, we've had LaRon Landry, Eric Reed's now in the NFL, Jamal Adams, I think Grant Delpit's better than all of them. He is great. And I think there's going to be a lot of disguising of coverage, and he's going to rely on those safeties to make big plays instead of the cornerbacks.
Yeah, and one of the things we weren't expecting from DJ Mack when in the conference championship game was him attacking down the field. He actually threw for more yards in that game than Mackenzie Milton had in any single game to this point in 2018 up to the injury. He hit on 4 passes of 44 yards or longer, but again, that's two things. Obviously, credit to him for settling down after a really shaky first half, but also, let's be honest with you, LSU's speed in the deep secondary, like you're saying, is not like that much that he's seen or really anybody else has seen, at least to this point. And that makeup speed, I think, is what's going to be a key factor.
That's exactly what it is. You're going to be looking at Terrence Alexander. You're going to see that he's beat. You're going to throw the ball, and Grant Delpit's going to come over the top because they had schemed it assuming that he was going to get beat on this particular coverage, and it was all a trap. I would not put that past Aranda. Aranda is a great defensive coach.
Yeah. And you can even look off guys, and they still have enough speed to get back to the spot.
What will help you is that our pass rush, we're going to be, we're missing our defensive tackles, both of them. We're going to be starting a true freshman and a redshirt freshman up there. And I mean, while I like Tyler Shelvin's potential, he's not there yet. Like I said, our top rush linebacker has been out the entire season. He's not going to be back for this game. We've had an okay pass rush, but not a great one. So that does help. If you have a green quarterback, the last thing you want to face is a ferocious pass rush. Yeah. You're not going to have to face that. Like last year, I think Auburn had a better pass rush than we will in this game.
So let's finish by ragging on Bama, which is something that we all can.
Oh yes,
that we all can agree on. You touched upon this earlier about UCF's national championship claim. I don't call it a claim as much as it's it's there. I mean, it was there for the taking. We claimed it. Yes, I totally agree with the sticking our finger in Bama's eye is something that I think a lot of football fans really enjoy about this, because they are the empire. They are they're the Borg, right? And for a team like UCF, which it's kind of funny, like you just called UCF a small school. It's the largest school by student population.
True, yeah.
And
I meant in football terms. But
yes,
right.
In football terms, yeah, relatively speaking. But how much did you, as an LSU fan, and how much do LSU fans in general, aside from TJ LSU dad, just enjoy this whole ride that UCF has taken the college football world on the last 12 months?
I think more than other SEC schools, we enjoy it. Mainly because I know my biggest gripe with Alabama is that they're humorless. They're on this incredible run, which I think is truly the greatest run in college football history. What they've done over the past 10 years is you can put it up against pretty much anything in history, and it sucks to be in their division, and particularly to have our former coach in charge of them. I mean, it is galling. But you would think they would enjoy it more. Their fans are just – the Borg is a perfect name for them. You will be assimilated. And for them to complain about someone else claiming a questionable title is the height of unintentional irony.
Thank you for saying this, because that was one of our many points last year.
Seriously, Bama's going to complain about someone claiming a title? But also, this is what I love about UCF. In the course of the past 2 years, y'all have managed to anger, I think, the most these fan bases. Alabama, Auburn, and Florida. That's pretty much the list of schools LSU hates the most. So yeah. I'm totally on board with this. Print up a T-shirt. I wish y'all weren't playing us so you could win again, and I could enjoy another claim of a national championship. I clearly am not rooting for you in the Fiesta Bowl because I want my team to win. But if y'all win, I'll be upset for the loss because we kind of need that 10-win season. But from your standpoint, I'm not going to be mad if UCF wins from a UCS standpoint. I think it's great. It's great for football. How could you not like this?
Yeah, it's part of it is just the fun of it, but also part of it is just the fact that it's UCF has kind of taken the flag for for the quote little guys out there, right? That, because one thing that I've been saying, and Eric and I have gotten into many arguments on this podcast about it, is there's effectively half of FBS is nominally disqualified from being able to win the national championship.
Absolutely agree with you.
It's
the biggest problem with the playoff system.
Yeah, and I find that to be preposterous. If you're gonna, by the way, they sold it to us as all 130 teams have a chance, and that was a lie. So why not call it out for the lie that it is? Let me ask you this. A lot of UCF fans, well, reportedly, we don't know exactly how many UCF fans are going to be out there, but I imagine it's probably about the same, hoping that it would be about the same as went out 4 years ago or 5 years ago now for Baylor. Not sure how many LSU fans are heading out there, but we know that wherever LSU fans travel, they bring the most phenomenal tailgate cuisine you can possibly imagine. So
it is good. It is outstanding food. I will put our tailgates up against anyone. Ole Miss says they've never lost a tailgate, but that's only because you don't keep score.
So let me ask you this: if you're a UCF, you're talking to UCF fans who want to partake in some of the fun. How do we go about this? I know it's an 11 a.m. kick. Local time.
That's going to be the difficulty.
That's going to be a bit of the problem.
Hey,
but
listen,
what are the?
Hold on. I was at an Alabama LSU game in Baton Rouge in 2014, and people were already tailgating 9, 10 a.m. I don't think the morning's a big deter to some of the Tiger fans that I ran.
Okay, 9, 10 a.m. Like the game kicks off at 11.
Yeah, and also there's going to be the rules of what you can bring.
That's true.
Because normally, on an LSU game day, there's almost no limits of what people can bring to cook. The Fiesta Bowl is going to be a lot stricter, so you're not going to get peak LSU tailgating. You're just not. I'm sorry. Boo. It's also a morning game, and it takes us a while to get ramped up. But the big key for an LSU tailgate is that, A, we want you to think that we have the best food in the world. So LSU fans are very generous. We want you to have our food and drink our beer and say it's the most delicious thing you've ever had. On the flip side, we're also very aggressive. So we are going to yell at you. We're going to tiger bait you. We're going to make fun of you. What we want is for you to make fun of us back. And then we'll throw you a beer. It's mainly we'll tiger bait you, and then we'll say something about you being a small school, and then say, hey, well, at least we beat Auburn last year. And we like interplay, and I think that takes some fans aback. They get intimidated by us being the big loud Uncle Buck kind of character. LSU fans, yes, we are loud and obnoxious, but I swear we're harmless. Unless you're a Bama fan, then it's for blood.
So your advice is, if you're a UCF fan, you're going around the parking lot in Glendale, the screaming about the tiger bait and all that kind of stuff, that's an invitation to come on by and have some early morning gumbo. This is what you're saying?
It is. It absolutely is. You just got to trash talk back.
Okay. So we're gonna have
enough in common to do that. We have enough in common between Alabama, and then also we could laugh about how Florida complains about scheduling to everybody.
Exactly.
For a school that will never leave the state of Florida to complain about scheduling. And also, I'm still mad about the hurricane thing. So I can't even talk about it. They screwed us and then tried to run to the media, trying to portray us as a villain when we were the ones who were like, hey, hurricanes are dangerous. Perhaps we might want to reschedule this game.
Hey, that sounds familiar, about Florida screwing somebody over and then running to the media trying to make them look like the villain. That sounds awfully familiar. Yeah, almost sounds like a strategy is being employed up there.
Yeah, it's almost like they do it all the time. Florida will not leave the state of Florida for an out-of-conference game. They just don't. It's their out-of-conference schedule. I think it's 20 years they haven't played an out-of-conference game outside the state of Florida except for bowl games. It's ridiculous. Their only time they leave the state is when they play us.
Right.
Pretty much, yeah. No, that's pretty accurate. 1991, Syracuse. That was the last time Florida played a regular season game that was a true road game, that was out of state since then. That was the last time they played. And actually, what's funny, and you know this because I give LSU credit. LSU plays people. They've played everybody. Yeah. They've played Oregon. You played Texas. You're going to play soon here. Florida and Kentucky are the only two schools in the SEC in the next 20 years that does not have a true non-conference road game that's not their in-state rival.
That's just
how is Kentucky? Oh my God, Kentucky really?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that makes us so infuriated about 2011, aside from Alabama getting a second bite at the apple and Oklahoma State getting screwed out of that, LSU that season played Oregon, who won the Pac-12 out of conference, and played West Virginia, who won the Big East out of conference.
At West Virginia.
Yeah. And Oregon was at a neutral site.
Arlington, I remember that.
Right.
It's just like that. If LSU wins that game, the 2011 LSU Tigers go down as one of the greatest college football teams of all time. So there has really been a pall that has hung over the LSU program since that game. There's just no denying it. The BCS National Championship game against Alabama really set LSU football back, and I think it hurt college football in general because that's kind of what set us on the road to what we have now, this system that's kind of rigged in Alabama's favor.
Well, it's funny. I was just going to mention that. Yeah. I was just going to mention that because, and I guess we'll finish off on this because we're starting to hear the sort of same grumblings over the past month that we heard in the wake of that LSU-Alabama BCS championship game, that the system is not so much rigged in favor of Alabama, but rigged in favor of the SEC, and that some other dignitaries and some other conferences are starting to chirp a little bit. We heard some folks from the Big Ten, the ACC kind of getting into the mix a little bit. Do you think that if we get another Alabama invitation, if they run through the playoff this year, and then let's say they do it again next year, could that be the catalyst for some of the stuff that we saw coming out of the Athletic earlier in the month where, yeah, the contract's through 2026, but the sponsorships are only through 2020. And 6 years in, we might see a little bit of a change. We might see a renegotiation of the contract. What do you think?
I don't think it's Alabama so much that'll cause the renegotiation. I think it's the Big Ten getting screwed because the Big Ten has weight. Ohio State getting screwed this year, and I don't want to say they got screwed, but it was pretty much a coin flip between them and Oklahoma. But the Big Ten has now missed the playoffs 2 straight years. That's the kind of thing that's good for if you want a larger playoff, because the Big Ten, they're the big boys. I mean, you can't screw over Ohio State. You can't screw over Oklahoma. You can't screw over Alabama. It's right now you can screw over the ACC because honestly, who cares about the ACC? I'm looking at it from a power broker standpoint. You know, if the Pac-12 gets hosed, no one cares.
They kind of hose themselves in a way, but anyway.
You screw over Ohio State, they care. You screw over Penn State, people care, and that's what leads to the expansion. We need a genuine screwing of a blue blood for expansion to happen.
Well, listen. You mentioned how Oklahoma State got screwed in 2011. You got screwed because you had to beat Alabama twice in a year, and I think that's why we went to 4 teams, because people are like, this is a joke that we're having an all-SEC national title game, and LSU had to beat a team twice. You're right. It always takes somebody getting screwed. That's what I've said. People have, it's not that UCF screaming it's going to change anything. It's when somebody like an Ohio State gets screwed, like the Big Ten, and those people say, whoa, why are we getting left out here? That's when things start changing.
Because honestly, the power brokers don't care about UCF. I mean, you guys can get screwed from now until the cows come home, and no one's going to care because you're UCF. And that's wrong, but that's just the way it is. And also, that's what happens in SEC politics. LSU is kind of the bastard stepchild of the SEC. We lose all the internal politics because the power center of the conference is Bama, Florida, still Tennessee for reasons passing understanding.
I was going to say,
Georgia. It's those. Auburn has more pull than we do. A&M for some reason has more pull than LSU, and it's just. So when LSU gets hosed by something in the SEC, no one cares because, LSU cares, but the power brokers don't. And that's how it's going to work from a playoff standpoint. UCF getting screwed, whatever. Don't be UCF. Ohio State gets screwed, they're going to bring down the hammer and figure out a reform because they want Ohio State in that playoff.
Well, here's to Ohio State getting screwed and Bama getting screwed and all those teams getting screwed, hopefully in the next
here's the
few
Bama
weeks.
getting screwed.
Yeah.
And here's Alabama getting screwed. Man, forget Ohio State. Also, I think the good news for UCF is, what does this lead to getting a bid to the Big 12? I mean, there are 10 teams. The Big 12 is constantly getting hosed over because of their round robin system. TCU made the climb up from the Mountain West to to a Power 5 conference and has acquitted themselves well. They're not winning 10 games every year, but they're still really, really good and one of the better teams in that conference. To me, it seems UCF and maybe either USF or Cincinnati is a pretty logical fit in the Big 12, which could probably use to go back to 12 teams.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could go for another half hour on that, but I know you you like me are a dad and probably want to get to bed at least at this point. But
yeah, that's right.
But anyway, before we let you go, where are you going to be watching the game, and how can UCF fans get in touch with you and follow everything that you do?
I will actually be in New Orleans.
Nice.
So I'll be at. My friend has a bar, the Rum and Lash. He is the head chef there. He just opened it up. So if you're going to be watching the game, come on by. I'll be watching the game there.
Oh my God, you have a friend who's the head chef at a bar in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
So life is good. You can follow my writing. I run under the handle Poser at andthevalleyshook.com or one of the SB Nation sites. My Twitter, where I tweet about all sorts of terrible things, including Leeds soccer and Washington Capitals hockey because of other places I've lived, at ATVS Poser. And that's Poser, Poseur. So it's the classic punk rock spelling of it.
Or I was going to say the classic Bayou spelling of it, if you will.
Well, yeah, I also Frenchified it because it works.
Poser.
Poser.
You're right. Yeah. Stephen Baker from andthevalleyshook.com. Steve, thanks for spending some time with us. Enjoy the game. We know you will. We don't know if you'll remember it at your friend's bar in New Orleans, but enjoy it. It should be fun.
Congratulations on a great season, guys, and I hope it ends in tears. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks. All right, thanks to Stephen once again from andthevalleyshook.com, part of the SB Nation Network. You can follow Stephen, once again, like he mentioned, at ATVS Poser. Also recommend Valley Shook on Twitter, Valley Shook on Twitter. Podcat, our man over there, is who's our head, is in charge of that site. One of the managing editors is such a great follow on Twitter. He really is amazing. So, we want to thank those guys as well for their incredible hospitality. And UCF fans, if you're heading out to Glendale, like I said, if you get yelled at by LSU people, that's just an invitation to come on over and have some great food and talk about some football. So. They're not as serious as the Alabama fans, so don't get jaded. All right,
it's a fun group. It's
a fun group, and it's always fun. They love when opposing fans come by, except for Alabama, because Alabama, like Stephen was saying, they take themselves too seriously. But if you're out of towners, man, they love it when you come by, and because they love showing you how great the food is, and that's the thing that I just love about. Louisiana culture, and I know that you've been up there many times. That they just love to party up there, and they love to take the party with them when they go on the road. And that's something that will be that I hope that we enjoy. That I hope that everyone comes from out of there comes and say, "Hey, man, we had such a great time with the LSU folks. They were fantastic. We had some gumbo. We had some. We had a little. We had some seafood that they brought with us. That they brought with them from the bayou out to the desert, and it was a grand old time." So, I mean, you partook in a little bit of that up in Baton Rouge a few years ago, and I'm guessing we're going to get a little bit of this, right?
Oh yeah, listen, I've spoken about it, and I think I went to the 2014 LSU Alabama game, night game. I spent the weekend there. Friday, I remember I went to an exhibition basketball game at the Pete Maravich Arena. I saw the Shaquille O'Neal statue up close. I got to see the new Alex Box baseball stadium they have there that Stephen was talking about. And I got to witness that stadium and just to tailgate the entire day. Keep in mind, you're talking over 100,000 people in a campus at that time for a football game to get in and get out. And everybody was so chill. even before the game, everybody was tailgating like 10 hours before the game, and even after the game, after a heartbreaking loss, people are still like laying low and drinking drinking their sorrows because they lost, but
they're still having a good time. It wasn't right. Like it didn't ruin their day.
No, I mean they were bummed out, but it was almost like part of them expected it because it's Alabama. But it was an awesome experience, one of the best experiences I've ever had. I remember they were tailgating there the day before when Scott Van Pelt. Remember Scott Van Pelt and Ryan Russillo had the radio show there.
Yeah,
Van Pelt and Russillo. It's a cool experience. Cool fans. Awesome facilities there, and they obviously will be wearing the white tops, but they're great fans. They're passionate about their program. And all sports. I mean, they love their baseball just as much as they love football, obviously. So, I think. And look, as I mentioned in the interview, we both have a lot in common. We're both annoyed with Alabama, and we both certainly are annoyed with Florida. So,
yeah. Well, like we said, it should be a good time. They should be enjoying it. And you should enjoy it as well if you're out there. I wish I could get out there, but Brian's out there like we were having. Like we talked with him earlier, and it just should be a fun time out there for everybody. So, all right, just a couple quick things I wanted to catch up on as we roll on forward. There's basically no UCF sports going on except for women's basketball until New Year's Day. Women's hoops is on the road again. Can you believe this? That they're on the road again? They're going up to Quinnipiac up in Connecticut on Sunday, December 30th at 2:00. Coming off of, by the way, that close loss to Syracuse, who is also top 20 in the RPI, as the Knights split their two games in the St. Pete shootout. They were right with the Orange step for step, and then and just couldn't get the buckets that they needed down the stretch. So the Knights are right now at where'd that right? There it is, 10-2. 4-0 at home and 5-1 away. So at least they're still off to that pretty good start. Hopefully should take care of this Quinnipiac team before they.
Well, be careful, Quinnipiac. And I'm not joking; they're very good. This is a team that won their league. They made the NCAA tournament last year, knocked off Miami in the opening round. Of course, then they lost to Connecticut. Who doesn't, right? This team won 25 games last year. Now, and they play. Well, this is
tops in the or they're off to a 5-5 start this year. But like you said, they are. They were pretty solid last year, but they got off to a little bit of a rough start here.
Well, because they played Texas and Missouri up in Estero, Florida, and lost 2 games close. They lost by 1 to number 10 Texas, lost by 14 to Missouri, who's ranked 18th in the country. They lost to Central Michigan. By 15, they're the most recent game, but they played a tough schedule. Dude, I'm just telling you, not an easy game. Do not automatically assume this is a win. And you know how it is. We've seen this in sports. That last road game. Oh, it's the holidays. You can get distracted. Let's go home. I'm just telling you. Just watch out.
All right. By the way, the Central Michigan team that beat Quinnipiac also beat UCF. So.
Now, good. You made my case. Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, men's basketball. On the other hand, they are not going to play their next game. They got a nice break, huh? They don't even play again until the new year, and they start conference play at home against Temple on Wednesday, January 2nd, so the day after the bowl game. 7 o'clock tip on ESPN News. Yeah, big game coming in for them, right?
Right off the bat, Temple's played well in the non-conference. It's weird. They always seem to play Temple when UCF's involved in a big bowl game or celebrating bowl games, but it's a big game, and I don't know. I hope this time off didn't hurt them because I thought they were phenomenal in their last game against Illinois State, and I thought they were starting to figure some things out. So hopefully this time off doesn't hurt that. They can kind of carry that over to the conference because it's a tricky start. Home to Temple, at UConn with Coach Hurley, the new coach at UConn. They're playing a lot better. They're scrappy. That's a tricky, tough start. You don't want to get off to a slow start in this league, not with all the expectations like they are.
I wanted to touch upon that Illinois State game real quick because the Knights won by 19. They were up big at the break, 43-18. Illinois State kind of made a little bit of a run of it, but then the Knights kind of put it away. Again, this game kind of played out like a UCF game. You think if all things went well, should play out, where Taco Falls free throw problems did not come into play really. He had a pretty good game at a double-double. 11.
I really did. I thought he was tremendous.
Yeah, he was 11 points, 12 boards, but affected every single shot around him. Chad Brown actually got the start at the 4. And although we did see Colin Smith come off the bench and actually have a very good game, 12
really
points,
good.
4 rebounds too. So
I'm interested to see if Coach Dawkins stays with that going into conference. They kind of said before the game it was more because Colin's a little banged up. They wanted to manage his minutes, but boy, he brought a spark there on the bench. So we'll see if they stay with that or not. It remains to be seen. But I thought they were clicking on all cylinders there, which is right time with conference starting.
And combined from B.J. Taylor and Aubrey Dawkins, you got 12 of 23 from the field and 33 combined points. So your top 2 scorers were working. Your post game was working. Taco was 5 for 5 from the field, by the way. I should mention that. And it all worked against an Illinois State team that, to be honest, has had better times, and certainly UCF the last time they played them was certainly a little bit better. They dropped to 7-6, but UCF took care of business. I guess yes, that is what you want to see heading into conference play. It's just I'm kind of looking for any sort of dents in the armor, if you will, but I didn't really see any off of that game except for they kind of got a little soft in the second half and let Illinois State kind of crawl back into it before they kind of put them away. Was there any concern from your part about that?
No. I mean, it's basketball. Everybody makes a run, so I'm not going to get too caught up in that. It's all about.
I don't know. I just like seeing teams when they just step on the other team's throat. I mean, that's the thing that I like to see them. And yes, we did kind of get that, but I was like, I hate getting into those little nail bitey situations because if you don't get a couple key baskets at the right time, then things could really unravel, as we have seen already this year. You know what I mean?
I understand, but I never got that sense in that game. I think the Georgia Southern might be the better argument for that earlier when they kind of let Georgia Southern get back in there. But no, I thought they did what they had to do. I know what you mean. I mean, Illinois State made a run. They're a proud program, but no, I liked what I saw. So,
all right, UCF is right now tied for 3rd in the American with Temple at 10-2. Cincinnati's 11-2. Houston's undefeated to start the year, 12-0. How about that start for the Cougars this year, huh?
They're really good. I mean, they've beaten LSU. They've beaten Oklahoma State. They've beaten Oregon. I think they're for real. I think this league is a lot better than people think. It's funny. I think football, as we've seen in the bowl games, has kind of proven my point. I think football is down this year. People assume basketball was down this year. I think they're better than people think. I think Houston's good. I think they're really good. Tulsa's had some nice results off the non-conference. I actually think right now the American Conference is better than the Pac-12, and it would not shock me if the American Conference ends up with more bids in the NCAA tournament than the Pac-12. I think the American can make the case that they're the 6th best conference in the country, which in basketball, that's a big deal. Because remember, in basketball, you include the Big East, which is a great league in basketball. So I think the league this is a fascinating year for the league. I think a lot of teams are improving. It's going to be a battle on a nightly basis.
Well, what do we have? We have, let's see, Memphis, Houston, USF, and ECU all have games before the new year. And I'm trying to see how many teams could the American have get double-digit wins before New Year's Day. So USF has one more game. UConn's at 9 wins, but they're kind of stuck there. So nobody else does. But, you could have 6 teams from the American with double-digit wins heading into New Year's Day. So that's a good indication, right?
I think 3 bids is a very realistic goal for the league this year, which not a lot of people thought would be the case in the preseason. I think a 3 to 4 bid league this year would be successful, and I think it would be more than the Pac-12 may end up getting unless they just get reputation teams in. But
never rule that out.
I'm telling you, this league is up. No, but I think this league is a lot better. I mean, Cincinnati, a lot of people thought would be down. They're just they just keep rolling with Mick Cronin as the head coach there. They're good. South Florida is very much improved in Brian Gregory's second year. I'm telling you, this league is going to be a battle on a nightly basis. So I'm telling you, that's why it all starts with you don't want to dig yourself a hole in this conference, because I don't think you can dig yourself out of it with the depth that I think this league might have this year.
Well, it's going to be 10-2 against 10-2 next Wednesday. So And I know that you guys will be, actually Brian won't be back in time for that, but we'll all be watching that game intently because, he's getting back from Phoenix on the 3rd.
Slacker.
I know, right?
Can't fly overnight.
I know.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. Elo,
right.
What do you have coming up for us? And you and I have been collaborating on this future UCF Hall of Famers. We've been kind of working a few of those out through the holidays here and there, catching up with some of the old guys. It's been a pretty good series, gotten a pretty good response so far, but what else do you have on tap?
Yeah, that's going to be going on through the new year. I mean, I think through all the sports year, because it's going to be pretty lengthy. I kind of compared it. That's kind of our version of the 30 for 30 or sports century, if you will, right? I mean, a little feature there, and we'll move on. We'll do other sports, too, once we get done with our football people. Also, I wrote, this is our last podcast of 2018. So I wrote the top 18 games of 2018 in all UCF athletics. That's on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Did you have any qualms there real quick there when you looked at it? I
didn't really. I thought that the football was a little heavy toward the top 5. I thought that there were some. I thought that some of those soccer games, some of the men's soccer games, especially down the stretch, could have been a little bit higher up on the list. Maybe. I thought that maybe the UCF Temple game wasn't quite. Probably should have been a little bit lower. That's probably my one thought.
I don't disagree with that. I kind of put the football up there because of the streak. Every game, the streak was on the line.
I mean, football naturally just kind of takes all the oxygen out of the room, But
I think this was unique because of the streak and the fact that, if UCF loses to Temple or if they would have lost to Memphis, College Game Day probably doesn't come here. And that's why I had the Cincinnati game, just because of that whole day as a whole. But I don't disagree with that. I usually don't like to stack up football that quickly up front, even though I always hear from that, well, hey, man, where's that football game? I've already heard from – I mean, it's funny. I've heard people, well, what about the Pitt game? I mean, I'm like, that was a disaster. That was a horrible game. Like, the only thing I remember from that game was Pitt faking injuries. That's never a good sign of a quality game. But you're right. I probably stacked it a little bit, but, it's tough. I mean, men's soccer, there were some great games there. Baseball, volleyball. I mean, you had to be proud of that. I had 3 volleyball matches in there.
Yeah. I thought it was a nice job by you putting both of the Cincinnati matches in there. They were both sort of tying them for the same spot, which was good. I mean, those matches were, first of all, they were amazing quality volleyball matches, and they were so significant to the team this year. So that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun to see. But if you've got any qualms with it, that if you're listening, let us know in the comments about that, because that's actually something that we've done the last, I think, 3 years, right? When we've done the top games of that year. Like, if we're still doing this in the 2030s, you're not going to extend it out to like 30 games, are you?
Let's hope not.
Because that's a bear to edit.
It'll be tricky. So you can check that out on the site. Also, as I mentioned, I'm filling in on the finish line. If you're listening to this on Friday, we're going to have Gordy Rush on that show, who is the sideline reporter for LSU football. That'll be on at 3:50 Eastern on Friday. If you're listening to the finish line on 96.9 The Game in Orlando, you can watch that. You can also listen to that on the iHeart app on that. So I think that'll be kind of cool to kind of get that perspective with 2 sideline reporters, Jerry O'Neill, obviously, who I'm doing the show with, as I'm filling in for Shot, and then obviously the LSU sideline reporter. So that'll be pretty good. And then on Saturday, I just found out, as we were doing this episode, I will be on the Producers Show up in Lafayette, Louisiana, on 103.7 in Louisiana. I will be on right there at about 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 10:30 Central Time. I'll be on there to give the UCF perspective as they preview the LSU-UCF game.
Good stuff. And we'll also have plenty of content from the bowl game coming up. Of course, Brian is there. Jeremy Brenner is also there. Jeremy's got a roundtable coming up. Luke Saris will have his preview coming up around the corner, and like we said, we'll kind of be rolling everything forward as we get ready for Tuesday and the bowl game. So if you're traveling out to Phoenix via driving, I don't know why in the world you would drive out there.
No, don't do that.
No, seriously, man, come on, fly. Get spring for the plane tickets and fly, for crying out loud.
Amen to that, brother.
If you're driving, if you're flying, whatever you're doing, hopefully.
Is it that really much more cheaper to do that? I guess it is, but there's creative ways where you can.
I mean, it depends on how many people you're going with, right? And also how much you value sleep.
That's a good point.
So, but however you're traveling out to Phoenix, be safe out there, enjoy it. Have fun with the LSU folks, and like I said, hoping that everyone represents UCF well as the Knights go for win number 20. Can you believe it? Win number 26 in a row, and another bowl game against an SEC team. So much on the line in this game, and we hope everyone enjoys their time out in Phoenix and has a grand old time. So by the way, thanks again to Brian Murphy for joining us from Houston, from the airport on his way out to Phoenix, Spokes_Murphy. And thanks also to Stephen Baker from And the Valley Shook. Make sure you follow Valley Shook on Twitter, as well as Stephen individually at ATVS Poser. We'll be sure to link him up here in the show notes as well, so you can follow him and the good folks over at ATVS, because they do a great job covering LSU. Make sure you follow Eric at Eric Lopez Elo. Follow me at Jeff_Sharon. Follow us at UCF_Banneret. Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. And of course, as always, at blackandgoldbanneret.com. For Eric, I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the game, and we will be talking to you not long after it in 2019. Enjoy the Fiesta Bowl between UCF and LSU.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.